Hello and welcome. This is Caroline Cooper bringing you simple ways to engage with your customers to get more sales and more repeat business at no additional cost. So welcome to the webinar. Before we kick off, I'm just going to go through some of the domestics so that people know how to get involved. You should see a little pop-up screen like this one, and this allows you to ask questions and to raise your hands. If you're not seeing the pop-up screen, then just click on the little arrow, white arrow with a red background, and that should pop it out for you. Okay, so just a little bit about me before we kick off. I'm Caroline Cooper and my business is Naturally Loyal. And for those of you who don't know me, my background is hospitality. I published the Hotel Success Handbook about 3 years ago, and in fact it was his birthday the other week when we were at the Bournemouth Hotel and Catering Show, because that's where Lucy and I launched it 3 years ago. I speak regularly at industry events, so anything from the caterer to the Tourism Society to obviously the Hotel and Catering Show 2 weeks ago, which is where I first ran this particular presentation. And I write regularly for various journals. My blog featured here from the Caterer a couple of months ago. I write regularly for Hotel News Now, which is an online US journal, and for Hotel Industry UK. And within my business, there are what I refer to as 7 essential ingredients. So everything I do is centered around building customer loyalty, so making sure people have a fantastic experience when they're with you, so that they stay longer, they spend more, and that they're more likely to come back again. But of course that doesn't happen by accident. So those 7 ingredients start off with L for loving your customers. And I'm sure we all can think of customers who we see them walking in and we go, oh no, our heart sinks because we dread serving them because they are just such a pain and they don't appreciate what we do. So that's the first of my essential ingredients. I'm working with a hotel currently, and I have to tell you, within about 5 minutes of talking to the owner, I realised that there was no affinity with the customers that they were attracting there, and it became a chore for them. And it also meant that the customers that they did want to attract were actually being turned away because there was no connection with the customers that were already there. So loving your customers is number 1. Secondly, making sure that everybody gets an outstanding experience. And this is all the attention to detail, and obviously a lot of this we're going to be talking about within this session. Y is for getting your customers to say yes to more, but also thanking you for it. So not in a way that's all pushy or salesy, but letting them know what you've got available so that they are in a position to buy it from you. Because there's nothing worse as a business owner, hearing your customers saying, oh, I didn't know you offered that. If I only had known, I'd have got it from you rather than buying it from one of your competitors, or words to that effect. And if we think about what logically complements what we're already offering, and making sure that those things are available and that our team know how to make those things available too. The 4th one is A for appreciate your customers. And again, we're going to be talking more about that in this session today, so I'm not going to go into depth on that one now. L is for leveraging the lifetime value. Let's face it, you work so hard to get customers through the door in the first place. You want to make sure that you keep them. And that's not like chaining them to their chair so they can't get out again. It's making sure that we follow up with them and ensure that when they are ready to buy again from us, and that could be next week, it could be next month, it could be next year, it might even be 2 or 3 years down the track, that you are still on their radar, that they remember you, and that they know how to contact you and how to come back again. And equally, if they get asked to make a recommendation, that you are forefront of their mind when they get asked by friends or family where to go. T is for having a trusted team. You can't be in your business 24/7. You need to have people that you can trust, that if you pop out for half an hour or go away for 2 weeks, you know that when you come back, everything is going to be as it should be, and that your customers are getting a consistent service from whoever serves them. And then why is about you. How do you come over to your customers? If you're in your business 24/7, you will be worn out and you're probably not going to be the best ambassador for your business. And whenever I think about this, somebody like Basil Fawlty comes to mind, you know, the worst possible person that you could have promoting your business. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody is like that, but you know, it gives you an idea of what can happen in extreme circumstances. So those are my 7 essential ingredients, and of those we are going to be delving into some of these today, but we're really just skimming the surface. And what we're focusing on are the 6 simple ways to get more sales and more repeat business at no additional cost. Now, I'm only covering 6 of those things, and when I ran this as a presentation at the Hotel and Catering Show a couple of weeks ago, it was actually entitled First and Last Impressions Really Do Count. And I felt that that was a massive area to cover. It could cover all sorts of things. So what I'm doing on this session is I'm going to home in on 3 things which are to do with giving a great first impression, and 3 things which are to do with delivering a really positive, lasting impression. Okay, so let's crack on with those. So the first question that we need to ask is, well, why is it important that we engage with our customers? Why do we need to build that relationship? Well, let me ask you this. Who here would like to increase their sales? Of course, everybody would. Who here has a bottomless budget for marketing? Probably nobody. And who here wants to have a little bit of fun with their customers? Well, the thing is that if you've got a great relationship with your customers, you can increase your sales without it costing you a lot of money, and you can have a bit of fun with your customers along the way as well, because you'll be able to get on with them and engage with them, and that is a more natural thing to be doing rather than working with people that you don't get on with. So how do we go about doing this? Well, whenever I'm working with my clients, I like to think about the end result. And if you're familiar with Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you'll know that habit number 2 is to begin with the end in mind. And that's exactly what we're going to do today, is we're going to start off with the end. And what I get my clients to do when we're talking about anything to do with customer service or the customer experience is to imagine what would they like their customers to be feeling, saying or doing once they've left. So when your customers leave you, what do you want them to feel? What do you want them to be saying? What do you want them to do? So let me give you a few examples. You might be wanting them to feel completely relaxed or completely energized if you're an attraction and you want people to be having a bit of an adrenaline fix. You want them to be feeling like they've had superb value for money. You want them to be feeling like they've had a fantastic time. You might be wanting to hear them say, oh, we must recommend that place to so-and-so. Or, oh, we've had such a fantastic time. Or, oh, Daddy, can we go back there again next holidays? Or you might be wanting them to do is pick up the phone and book with you again. Or you might be wanting them to recommend you to their friends. Or you might be wanting them to go and post a glowing review on TripAdvisor or on social media. It might be any one of those things. So grab yourself a piece of paper, and I encourage you now just to stop the recording and write down what you'd like your customers to be feeling, saying and doing as a result of spending time with you. Okay, so with that in mind, now that you know what the end result is and you can hear that conversation, you can imagine your customers chatting about you or doing whatever it is that you want them to do when they get home. Now that you can imagine that, it's a lot easier then to get everything in place in order to make sure that that happens. Now, I said that we were going to cover 3 things to do with first impressions and 3 things to do with last impressions. Now, I'm not going to take that in the order that you might think. I'm going to start off actually with those lasting impressions. What happens in the last few moments of your customer's experience with you that will prompt them to be feeling, saying and doing all of those things that you would like them to? So let's start off then with the first of those. And the first of those is to consider what is that little touch of magic that you can add to make your customer's experience really memorable. So there are a few things to think about here. First of all, is it something that you do, or is it something that you say, or is it something that they take away with them? So let's think about maybe something they can take away with them. For example, if you have something which is a sort of signature for your particular business, is that something they can take away? And what comes to mind here is, for example, if your bed and breakfast is renowned for your strawberry jam or your marmalade, maybe give them a tiny little pot of marmalade or jam to take away with them. Maybe you have a particular mascot or some theme for your business. And again, is that something then that some people can take something away with that mascot or that theme on? Have they had some fantastic food when they've been with you? So could you give them a little recipe of your signature dish or a particular food that you've prepared while they've been with you? It could be something like information. You know, just something really simple like writing out directions for the rest of their journey. So it may not be something that's the same for everybody, but really tailored around what that particular customer's either asked for or you've had a discussion about. And you've picked up on something that they've said during the visit, during their stay with you, and that you've made that thing possible, or you've given them the first step to get on board with that. So maybe you've looked up something for them on Google while they've been with you that helps them on their way for the next part of their journey or the next part of their holiday, wherever they're going next. Maybe it's sharing your favourite haunts in the area so that when they move on from you, they've got some personal recommendations rather than relying on everything that's in the guidebook. Or it could be that you have something that is really just given by the weather. For example, I know one hotel that in the winter, if it's been frosty, they go out and scrape the windscreens of their guest cars so that when they drive off, they haven't got to do that. Now, I would love that. Or in the summer, they go and wash down the windscreens like you would in a garage or maybe on the street in the US, but in the UK, that's not necessarily a very common thing you see happening. Or if it's a really hot day, that you give your customers a little lolly to take away with them just to help to cool them down. Or if it's a really cold day and you've got people who are going to be coming back, maybe you give them a flask of coffee if you know they're going to be outside and exposed to the elements all day. Or it's chucking it down with rain, so you give them a branded umbrella, something for them to take away. So just think about what you can give that makes it memorable. And it could be something disposable, it could be something that they keep. And it may be something that's homemade. And I had a great expression the other day, and that is to give them some glue. And what glue stands for is give little unexpected extras. And I think the emphasis there is that it's the unexpected, and it doesn't have to be a big deal. And if we think back 10 or 15 years, something that was a little unexpected extra when you stayed in a hotel was that you got a nice little chocolate on your pillow. But of course, everybody does that now. So it's no longer unexpected. It's almost the norm. So what is the thing that none of your competitors do that you could do that really makes you stand out and isn't going to cost you anything or cost you next to nothing? And it's the thought that goes into it that counts. So that's the first of the things that we can be doing to give a lasting impression when people leave. The next thing to think about is to ask yourself, what is the very last thing that your customers hear, they see, they smell, they taste, or they feel? So for example, hearing. Do they hear staff gossiping behind the scenes, not intending to be overheard by customers, but I'm sure we've all been there. I'm sure we can all think of certainly shops that we've been into where we hear that happening, but does it happen in your business? What do they see? Let's, for example, that they go out through a back door because it's easier to get to the car park. What do they see? Do they have to go past the cleaning cupboard? Do they have to go past doors into offices that are really untidy? Bed and breakfast that I stayed in last week, when I was going out, they'd left a door open to a storeroom and it was a tip. And that was one of the last things that I saw when I stayed there. What do they smell? Is it dirty bins? Is it your toilets that haven't been cleaned properly? What do they taste? You know, if you're serving food, and what comes to mind for me here is when you go to sometimes an Italian restaurant or maybe a Greek restaurant and they give you some foul-looking, foul-tasting liqueur at the end of your meal that really does quite literally and metaphorically leave a bitter taste in your mouth. What is it that people feel? Is it frustration that they're queuing to get out of the car park? Or that they have to wait for their bill and to part with their money? Now, I'm sure that all of those situations, we can all relate to those. And what's important is that we assess what is it that our customers see in our business. And does that end up being a talking point that people then have when they get home, is to be moaning about those things? Or is it something that was really great? You know, lovely, cheery faces and smiles that are just as inviting at the end of a busy day or a busy shift as they were when people arrived. Because we put so much emphasis into often what happens in the first few minutes of people arriving, we often forget about the last few minutes when they're leaving. And the one last one I'll leave you with on this one is, if any of your team smoke, where do they go for their cigarettes? Because there's nothing worse than seeing a huddle of people outside a back door all having a cigarette when your customers leave. Okay, so on to the third area, or the third thing that we can be doing to leave a really positive, lasting impression. And this is almost a two-stage one. And this is, how do we show our appreciation? Now, I've just mentioned there about having a cheery farewell as people leave. Add into that a simple thank you to show your appreciation of people's custom. And extend this into asking for feedback. People appreciate being asked for their feedback, but the best way to show that you really appreciate it is that you then act on it, that you're really listening to it and that you are going to follow through on it. But what happens after the event? And I think there are three ways that you can show your appreciation. First of all, if it's appropriate that you do some kind of a follow-up. Now, if you are a visitor attraction and you're potentially having thousands of people through your gates on a busy bank holiday weekend, you're obviously not going to be able to follow up with everybody that comes through. But if you've been having some one-to-one contact with somebody and you've maybe only seen, you know, half a dozen clients through the course of a day, or if they're spending hundreds or maybe even thousands of pounds with you, then it's not really unreasonable to be sticking a little thank you note in an envelope as depicted in the image there. The very least you can be doing is sending them an email that says thank you, but not something that's all automatic, something that actually really shows that you appreciate it, that's a bit more individual. But even better if you have a little thank you card, because you know what? Nobody else does it. Getting a little thank you card on your doormat, you open it up. First of all, it just helps to bring back the memories of a good day out or a good stay somewhere. And the other thing, great thing, is that people put it up on their mantelpiece. And then when their friends come round, or if it's in an office environment, their colleagues look at that and say, oh, who have you been getting thank you notes from then? And it becomes a talking point. And that way, other people get to hear about the great experience they've had as well. So not only does it make your customers feel great, but it also is a way of actually initiating some referrals as well. The second way about showing your appreciation is, as I say, giving some feedback or asking for some feedback and following through. So if somebody gives you direct feedback during their visit, let them know follow up how that's been followed through. If it's on social media or on TripAdvisor, again, respond to it accordingly. And I'm going to be talking a little bit more about social media and TripAdvisor little bit later on. And the third way that you can show your appreciation is to give your existing customers something by way of a little extra or something that's special that's only available to existing customers rather than people for whom it's the first time that they're buying from you. And we see so many offers that are only available to new customers, and I know why people do it. It's to get new business in. But shouldn't people that have already spent money with you be given something that's special, that's not available to other people? I think so anyway. So we've looked at three ways to leave a really positive, lasting impression, which will doubtless increase your loyalty and build brand ambassadors for you. And this is all part of engaging with your customers. So the three things we looked at were, first of all, make it memorable, add in the glue, so that's giving those little unexpected extras, review all of your final touch points, and just review what people hear, what they see, what they smell, what they taste, what they feel in the last few moments of their visit. And then finally, show your appreciation both as when they're with you and also follow that up after they've got home in some way. Okay, so those are three ways that we can engage with our customers and help to prompt more sales and more repeat business, all at very minimal cost to you. So before we move on to the three ways that we can create a great first impression, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about something which I have got available for you at the moment, and that is the customer journey and a series of audit checklists. Because what we're focusing on in this session is what happens before people arrive and what happens at the very end. And of course there's everything that happens in the middle. And we're not focusing on that on this call, but this is a way in which you can actually do a sort of checklist for yourself. So what I'm offering between now and the 1st of April, so that's Easter Monday, is I have 3 different checklists. The hotel one covers over 200 checkpoints. The attractions and leisure are 180, 190 points, and then there's meetings and events. So if you're a hotel, this will take you through all of the different areas, from your website through to doing initial research, through to booking, right the way through to going up to their room, checking all of those areas and covering some of the things that we've just been talking about as well. If you're an attraction or a leisure venue, then this then looks at everything, again, from making the decision to come and visit you, to their journey, to arriving, all the public areas, and then the follow-up. And the meetings and events, and this has been based on my umpteen years of being on the receiving end of booking meetings and events, as well as with the work that I do now. And just some of the things, it's so easy for people to let themselves down, the venues to let themselves down, that really just puts people off booking again. And with meetings and events, we all know they can be potentially very, very lucrative. So with the checklists, each of the checklists are available in 2 different formats. There is a PDF and there's also an Excel version. And the Excel version means that you can edit it, you can add to it, you can prioritize, do whatever you like with it. You can then tailor it for your own establishment. And what I really love about these checklists is that, first of all, they are great for getting your team involved, so it's not just down to you. They can see all the criteria. Everything's very black and white. It's either happening or it's not happening. And there may be reasons why things don't happen on a certain day, but you can use them at any time. They're also great for induction, so that everybody in your team, as part of their induction, can then go through and with a fresh pair of eyes, it's great for you, but also they then understand what are all the criteria that there are for every single touch point that a customer sees. You can split them up and do them as different sections. It's also a good opportunity to get different departments working together ask different departments to audit each other's departments so that they're seeing things through a fresh pair of eyes, and also then a basis for team meetings if you have them. And for the first 10 people to order those, I have an extra bonus, which is, the technical term is a profit sensitivity analysis, which is a little bit of a mouthful. Essentially what it does is it helps you to identify the impact of putting up prices, increasing sales, or getting more customers through your door, and all on a very, very easy spreadsheet to use, so you can see instantly that if you're reviewing your menu prices, for example, or admission prices or room rates, you can see instantly what impact that would actually have on your bottom line, because it will deduct off your fixed costs and your variable costs automatically once you put in the key data. So I'm including that as a bonus for the first 10 people who request those. Some massive savings there, only £47 for the hotel checklist, so that's saving you 50 quid. And for the attractions and leisure venues, that's down from £47 to £27, so that's saving you 20 quid. And for the meetings and events, then that's, instead of £57, £27, so that's saving you £30. So fantastic savings there, but only until the 1st of April. Okay, so enough of the sales spiel. Let's move on to what happens before people even arrive. How are you going to get that first impression and make it a really good one? Well, the first thing to do is just to listen to what's being said about you online initially. This is 9 times out of 10 going to be the first place that people look. They will go and look at TripAdvisor reviews. They're going to look at your website. They're going to be picking up things from social media. And even if you're not a great one for social media, that doesn't mean to say that people won't be talking about you on there. So you need to make sure that you have some kind of alerts in place or notifications so that you know when you're being talked about. So set up Google Alerts so that you can track that. The same with TripAdvisor. Love it or hate it, it's a fact of life. People will write reviews on TripAdvisor. So have a check to see what people are saying. But the thing about both of these is then get to engage with people. So for example, if somebody's talking about coming to your venue, whether it's a restaurant, a hotel, an attraction, hairdressing salon, whatever it is, and they've tweeted about you or they've put something on Facebook, respond to it, because that's all part of starting to engage. And then when they actually arrive, they will feel like they've actually started to build that relationship. You will get them more into buying mode by building that relationship first off. Think also about what people will be reading into anything that you've written for yourself, so your website and your blog. Does your website and your blog reflect who you are? Does it reflect your personality, or is it all stuffy and very formal? If you're not a stuffy and formal person and it's not a stuffy and formal business, then don't let your website be stuffy and formal. Have it to be chatty so that it actually connects and relates to the sort of language and the way that your customers are likely to express themselves. So it's appropriate for your target market. Tell your story. Let your personality show through. And track what people are saying. The second thing to think about is, again, before people arrive, is start to engage with them. Now, we've started to do that by responding to comments or to tweets or posts on social media. That's just the start of the story, because people are still forming that first impression before they drive up to your entrance. And that starts with, once they've actually made a decision to follow it through and maybe come and find out more about you, which might start off with a phone call, or it might even go straight to a booking. So if they're doing that, so let's imagine that somebody's going to phone you for have an inquiry with you. Ask them some questions. make it conversational, so don't feel like they're being interrogated, but try and find out a little bit about what the occasion is. It's a special occasion. Are they wanting anything special? Great opportunity also to maybe offer them something that they hadn't even thought of. But the important thing is at this point is you are actually engaging with your customer and making them feel actually, oh yeah, they sound really nice, or that was a nice place to go. That sounds like a nice place to go. Then when they book, if you're the type of venue where booking is required or they're likely to book, make sure that you get some kind of confirmation about about their reservation. And at the very least is an automated response, but far better actually if it's something that's personal. Now I know if you have a booking engine, they're likely to get an automatic reply, but then have something that's a little bit more personal. And use that then to follow up and start to build anticipation. So let's say that somebody's booked, maybe several days or even weeks before they're coming to you. This is a great opportunity to start to build that anticipation, remind them of their visit, and say how you're looking forward to seeing them. Just to give you an example of where this didn't happen for me recently. I went out for lunch, my husband and I, and 3 other couples, so there are 8 of us in total. We booked it quite some time in advance because of just the complications of finding a date that we could all do. But on the on the Saturday before we were due to go for lunch, we were all scurrying around because nobody could remember what time we'd booked because we hadn't had any confirmation. We all knew where we were going, but we couldn't remember what time we'd booked for. And then, again, this was a real lost opportunity. The particular venue that we went to was, it was actually a sort of produce store with more of a cafe really than a restaurant at the back, but really not, it still did Sunday roasts and really nice food. But I must admit, I hadn't really registered that they had all this other produce. I just thought that we were going for the cafe, that we were going for lunch. So for me, they'd actually missed another opportunity because we arrived at 1 o'clock, which was the time that our lunch was booked. But when I got there, they had all this beautiful fruit and vegetables all laid out the front. They had some lovely cut flowers. They had some bulbs, hyacinths and narcissi coming up. And then when you went inside, they had lots of lovely local produce and preserves, some delicatessen counter. And then they had chocolates, they had lovely, it was before Mother's Day, so they had some lovely Mother's Day gifts and things in there. But because they hadn't told us about any of those things, they'd missed such an opportunity because when we arrived, it was time for lunch and we just walked straight past it all. Now, I actually had a conversation with my husband about halfway through lunch saying, oh, on the way out, I'm going to get some vegetables because we haven't got much at home. But you know what? 4 o'clock came and went. We got to get our bill, and then when I go to the shop, it's all closed. Nobody made any effort whatsoever to tell us about any of the things that they had on sale. Now, had they engaged with us before we had arrived, by confirming the booking, sending something out beforehand, they could have probably doubled the bill that we paid for lunch with all the produce that they had there. But it was such a lost opportunity, such a waste. So this initial engagement before people arrive is very, very important. I just illustrated there one of the things that we could one example there. Now, I appreciate that with some venues there's not going to be that opportunity to follow up individually. But what you can be doing is adding value in some way, even if that's not directly, at least letting people know what's going on, making sure that your website is absolutely up to date. And a couple of things which are very sort of last minute, if you like, but whether it's directly on your website or whether it is sending out an email, for example, traffic conditions. Is there something that's going to hold people up? I took my cat to the vet today, and when I phoned to book him in, the receptionist said, oh, just to warn you, there are some roadworks, there's some 3-way lights, allow a little bit of extra time. Now that was helpful, not only for me, but obviously helped her as well, because it made sure that I left that little bit earlier to make sure that I still got there on time. Letting people know what there is to do when they get to you, because actually the type of activities they might get involved in, rather than leaving it till the day, actually they might want to think about, do they need particular clothing to really enjoy that particular activity? Is there anything that they need to pre-order or pre-book before they arrive so that they don't miss out on the day and they don't lose out because it's all booked up or because they're too late? So again, that helps you plan. It's more likely to secure a booking if you get people to part with their money or make a commitment to book with something before they come. And the more you can do that before they arrive, the more it actually helps build that anticipation. And instead of people going through what I refer to as buyer's remorse, and buyer's remorse is when they think, oh, actually, we've heard nothing from them. Oh, I hope we've made the right decision. Oh, gee, I don't really feel like going there. Should we cancel? All of those types of conversations, it's because they're getting this little drip feed. It's, oh, I'm really excited about going. And because when people are excited and they're looking forward to it, they will be a lot easier to engage with when they arrive. They're going to be much easier customers to serve, and they're probably more likely to buy more as well as an added bonus. Whereas people that are starting to sort of think, oh, if I made the wrong decision, they are the type of customers that when they arrive, they start to nitpick because they are looking for confirmation of their preconceived ideas. So, very important to get that engagement before people even set out on their journey to you. And then last but not least, let's think about the warm welcome that they get. Now, I know it's obvious that they're going to get a warm welcome when they arrive, but I'd like to focus on that sort of 5 minutes or so before they walk through your front door or come in through your ticket desk or whatever it is. So what are the things that happen in that last 5 minutes before they arrive? Well, first of all, it's thinking about, is our postcode accurate to actually land you outside our venue? And if it isn't, then going back to what we were talking previously, we need to make sure that that is blatantly obvious and either replace the postcode that we are promoting or advertising, or let people know to switch off their sat-nav and make it very clear, ignore your sat-nav, because we're all so dependent on it now. We're so on automatic pilot, and there's nothing more frustrating than being taken to the wrong entrance or a back gate somewhere when they think, oh, I've programmed in the sat-nav and I should get there. So that's the first thing. Is your signage clear? So at this time of year, there might be salt on the road. They could be splattered with salt and not be legible. In the summer months, is it overgrown with nettles or overgrowth from the verges so people can't see it? If people are travelling to you at night, is it well lit? What's the approach to your entrance like? Is it clearly marked? Is it easy to see? Again, not overgrown with vegetation and difficult to find. So think about all of those little touch points before people even get out of their car. Are the car parking bays clearly marked, or are people inconsiderately parked, which means that people can't find somewhere to park close to the entrance? So there are lots of things that we need to be thinking about, and going back to doing that customer journey that we talked about earlier, getting people to not be on autopilot when they drive in the morning or in the evening, but to be looking at all of those things through a customer's eyes and spotting where things aren't quite right. Because when we're talking about things outside, things can change instantly. Within a couple of days, things might change because of the weather or because of plants growing over things. If we're having extremes of weather, like high winds, signs getting blown over, whatever. So continually looking at that welcome that people get and making sure that every step of the way is nice and easy for our customers. Okay, so those are 3 ways that we can engage with our potential or new customers to start to build that relationship before they've even arrived. So checking what people are saying about you, whether that's on social media or online, and checking the sort of image that you put over by what you say about yourself. Engaging with people early on and taking that opportunity that whatever point of contact you have before people arrive, that you're taking that as a way to engage with them and getting a sort of 2-way conversation going, either online or in person, and create that really warm welcome before they even walk through your entrance. So my aim was to give you 3 things that you could be doing to give a really good first impression, and 3 things to give a really positive lasting impression, so that you are engaging with your customers, so that you're more likely to increase sales and more repeat business that's not going to cost you loads of money. So let's just remind ourselves of the first 3. So in order to progress this, make sure that you have got Google Alerts and you've got notifications on all of your social media, but also go to your website and your blog or anything else that you've got out there online, and just have a read through it. Does it reflect your personality and the personality of your business and of your team? Get that conversation going as early as possible, and I've stressed there a conversation rather than some bland automated emails going out that don't show, again, any personality. And take that customer journey, those last 5 minutes before they actually pull up at your front entrance. And then the 3 last things to be thinking about to give that positive last impression: making it memorable. What can you do to add that glue? So giving those little unexpected extras that your competition aren't giving them. What's the very last thing that they hear or they see or they smell or they taste or they feel in the last few minutes of doing business with you? And what do you do to follow up with them and to say thank you, to get any feedback, and to give them something that's only available to existing customers that your prospective customers are not even going to hear about? So just to sum up, if you are interested in the customer journey audits, then don't leave that too long, because only the first 10 downloads are going to get that special bonus, and all of these special rates will be coming down on the 1st of April. So get in quick if you want to be one of those 10, and certainly by the 1st of April. So I hope that has been useful for you. We did have some questions, and I'm just going to quickly go through those questions. I was asked by David about getting a deposit and getting people to commit to a deposit. My recommendation there is to really give your customers an incentive to get that booking confirmed now and to pay that deposit now. So it could be, for example, if you're the scarcity of your availability, are you going to get booked up and not be able to give them the dates that they want? If we think about what I'm doing now, I'm giving a cut-off date for any of those particular prices. So, you know, that scarcity or that urgency, create that, and that's a great way then to getting a deposit. But you need that incentive, because otherwise it's too easy for people to go, oh, I'll think about it and I'll come back later. I was asked about, from Sonia, about concessions and how to engage with your concessions or your business partners. I would strongly recommend that if you have got business partners or you've got concessions on your site, let's say, for example, you have a cafe and that's operated by a third party, you all need to be singing off the same hymn sheet. So maybe a starting point is actually to share the content of this webinar with them when you get the recording, so that you can go through it with them. But also make sure that you have got a good relationship with them as well as with your customers, and that you're engaging with them and they see the value, the importance of doing all the things that we have discussed on this webinar today. I was also asked about, had a question about contracts and entering into contracts. Again, I would recommend, you know, building that relationship beforehand, and depending on where your customers are coming from, and if it's possible, I would invite them in and get some face-to-face dialogue going, and because face-to-face engagement is always going to be far more powerful than doing things remotely. But the next best thing is actually have a conversation over the phone or even over Skype, and to have, you know, with a camera so that you can see each other. That makes a massive difference in terms of that engagement. The last thing to do is to rely on email, because it's so cold. You don't get a sense of the conversation that's going on. So if you're talking about contracts, actually, at the very least, get on the phone to each other, because we talked about that know, like, and trust. Getting the contract side, a lot of that is about trusting, and that's only going to come by actually having a two-way conversation, a proper dialogue. Okay, so that concludes this particular session. I hope that you found that useful, and this is Caroline Cooper from Naturally Loyal signing off. Bye for now.